The 2024 NFL Scouting Combine is in the books. So the three of us, we got our guest here, Ron Stewart. We're going to do a three-man NFL mock draft for the first round. Ron's going to be picking one, going every three picks. Then he gets the Jets pick. He's a Jets fan. I'm going to be picking two. I get the Bucks pick. Shout out Mike Evans re-signing. And then Danny's going to be picking three. You can see the millions of Cowboys jerseys behind him. This is going to be fun. We're not going to waste any time. Ron, I'll let you introduce yourself while you're on the clock with the first overall pick for the Chicago Bears.
Yep, I'm Ron. Of course, me and the Stock Exchange, we go way back. We've done many videos, many a times together here. And then this is going to be what we think they will do, right? Now what we would do if we were the GMs.
Yeah, we're doing this predictive, maybe a little bit of flair you want to throw in yourself, but generally predictive.
Some trades?
Yeah, we'll do trades if they come up. If somebody's like, I don't like what it's looking like on the clock here, and we'll do some negotiating. But what are you looking at, number one?
We're going to go Caleb Williams, nothing too crazy. He is the projected first overall pick, the heavy favorite. I don't really think anything changed at the combine. I guess he weighed in. He didn't. You had the weird tweet happen, but they're going to reset the clock. Go Caleb. I imagine that they sell Justin Fields. I don't know what the trade market's going to look like for him, but they're going to get a new guy.
Yeah, I'd imagine they're probably going to see if they can get a second rounder, maybe a third rounder is all they get at the best case scenario. A couple teams should be interested. Steelers, Falcons, those types of teams have been reported. I'm on the board here with number 2 overall. We did say we are doing this from a predictive standpoint. Everything that I heard from people that I trust, it sounds like it's Jayden Daniels over Drake May for the NFL. I think consensus, all three of us would take Drake May in this spot. But I am taking Jayden Daniels because I believe that is what the Commanders are going to do. It's a new owner. They want excitement. Drake May is exciting too, but Jayden Daniels, Heisman Trophy winner. I could see them, getting the new era of their ownership and their new coaching staff and GM group on the right foot with an exciting rushing threat. This is reeking of RG3 2.0, but we'll let them figure it out.
Yeah, and just for the record, we both would take Drake May. I'm assuming you have Drake May or Jayden Daniels higher from a real life perspective there, Ron?
I have a close real life. I would say Drake May for sure. He just feels cleaner.
Fair enough. Pick 3 made easy for me. I think at this point that the Patriots, if they don't go quarterback at 3 at this spot, maybe they go with a Kirk Cousins in free agency. Maybe they trade for a Justin Fields. Don't really see those options as being their best interest. I feel like number 3, given the quarterback hype that we've been seeing, it will be a quarterback. And they got a gift land into them here with Drake May falling to the 3rd overall pick. Like he should be number 2.
And you don't think that I've been on the camp that I could see the Patriots being like, hey, we're a little bit further away. We're just going to sign Jimmy G or something as a bridge quarterback, see what falls to us at the end of the first round. Maybe they really like Bo Nix, Michael Penix, or even JJ McCarthy, and they could trade back in or something like that. But for me, I think they should go quarterback, generally speaking, because, especially if May is on the board. Daniels is a different conversation, but I definitely don't hate that. Ron, are you going to go chalk here? Are you going to just take the best player in the draft?
Yeah, Marvin Harrison Jr. I think it's pretty much, I don't know if I would call it set in stone, but they're going wide receiver here. If they want to get cute and they want to take Rome, or if they want to take Neighbors, sure. But I think it's Marvin Harrison Jr. They have Kyler locked in place. Assuming he stays on the roster by the time we're on draft day, I think that this would be Marvin Harrison Jr., the heir apparent or whatever you want to call him.
Yeah, totally makes sense there. You got the best player in the draft, one of the few guys that didn't have to do anything at the NFL Scouting Combine. I'm on the board here with number 5. Danny, I'll let you get into it in a second. What's up?
I was just going to say, I got a suggestion potentially for this 5th pick.
This is the big trade spot.
Has to do with 2 teams you control.
That I control?
Yes.
Yeah, so I'm assuming the Falcons is one of them and the Vikings is the other?
Correct.
I think that the Chargers are going to want to stick and pick here, and the Giants, Titans, and Falcons will actually be the trade spots. The reason I think that is because there's 2 players on the board that I believe are crystal clear projections for the Los Angeles Chargers, fill positions of need for them. Are they going to go with the whole Jim Harbaugh narrative? They're going to take an offensive tackle like Joe Alt. I think he's the best tackle in the class. I think he's going to be a top 5 to 6 pick, whoever ends up picking there. And they also have a guy who, like Marvin Harrison, is a good enough wide receiver prospect that he didn't have to do anything at the combine with Malik Neighbors. There's some word that maybe Odunze is the guy that people view better. I think that the Chargers would value a guy like Neighbors, because their downfield threat and Mike Williams, he's coming off of an injury. QJ hasn't really worked out. Keenan Allen's a little bit older. I'm going to stick and pick Malik Neighbors here if anybody wants to do the trade package scenario there from the Giants pick. I think the Chargers would be wise to just take one of the best receivers prospects we've seen over the last couple of years.
Yeah, and I think in the spot of the Giants here, the main spot that I'm looking at here is the Minnesota Vikings, the Denver Broncos, the Las Vegas Raiders, simply because I feel like if you're the Falcons, you may just wait and pick. Maybe in the scenario they get Kirk Cousins. I'm looking at that three piece of teams between the 11 and the 13 spot that would be interested in moving up. And the one that really sticks out to me, especially hearing JJ McCarthy talk about his meeting with this team, linking up with their head coach, I can see the Vikings getting aggressive and going up for a guy like JJ McCarthy here. I think it probably wouldn't cost more than maybe 11, 2025 one, and maybe a pick swap in the day two area. But if the Vikings want to get their quarterback, they have to get aggressive here because, like we mentioned, even if the Falcons signed Kirk Cousins to a 1 or 2 year deal, they're still allowed to take a guy like JJ. And obviously, like I said, those other two teams. So let's just say that's the package. Swap 70 for 42, 11 plus the round one in 2025 gets you to 6. And then the Vikings end up going and selecting JJ here.
So do you think it's outside the realm of possibility that the Giants themselves would take JJ McCarthy at 6 overall?
Very well could. Very well could. I heard he met with them as well. I think for them, it's kind of tough because when you look at Minnesota, they have all the pieces in place to be able to support a young quarterback. And kind of what you mentioned with the New England point, I'm not necessarily knowing right now what exactly is going on with the Giants. Plus, they still have Daniel Jones signed. So I think it's an optimal play. If you can trade down, still get a blue chip player at 11 because it's a really deep class, net another 2025 pick. Now you're going to have more ammo where in 2025, you realize, oh, shoot, Daniel Jones coming off this injury. He's not that guy that we paid. We could move on after this 2024 season and have extra ammo to potentially make a move at quarterback.
Yeah, it makes sense too. The Giants have already done this. Collect a round one pick in a trade down. They got it for Justin Fields, right? When the Bears traded up for him.
Exactly.
So it definitely makes some sense. It would be hard for me if I was the Giants in desperate need of a number one wide receiver to move off of Rome Odunze. But at the same time, you're picking up an extra one. You're getting a better second rounder. Maybe the NFL is viewing this class as there's like 15 really good wide receivers getting another shot at that 42 spot. Maybe they're going to double dip at wide receiver with 11 and with 42 or whatever they got from the Vikings there. Ron, you're back on the clock with the Titans, which I heard they might be very much in the wide receiver market as well, based on some of the combine stuff. Everybody's, auto lock in Joe Alt here, but are you going to go with a wide receiver? Are you going to go with Joe Alt? What are you thinking?
Man, I would love this to be Rome Odunze. Selfishly, I am praying that Alt somehow makes it to 10. I think it's a very slim chance that he gets there. I see the appeal because it's like Callahan comes over from the Bengals. They took Chase over Sewell, and you would think, he gets his dad over, the offensive line coach. Maybe he can sort of make do with a lower level offensive line. I still got a tough time. Like Joe Alt, he just looked so good yesterday. Like 6'8", 300 pounds, smooth runner, does it all. Like I think, they have DeAndre Hopkins. Maybe they still think that he can play. To me, I think I'm still going to go, even though I would love Joe Alt to fall. I do think that it's going to be Joe Alt here just because he seems like a can't miss type of guy. And I think that would be something that the Titans would want to just sort of lock up something there alongside Skoronski.
Yeah, I mean, it's a deep wide receiver class. They could go address the need in free agency. Maybe they try and trade for a guy that Callahan would be familiar with in T. Higgins. It's possible that he's a tag and trade type of candidate as well. You got a franchise left tackle potentially on the board, and I don't think you want to really pass that up for the third best receiver in the class. That's the other thing, too. It's like maybe they're willing to go wide receiver if Marvin and Neighbors fall, or one of the two of those guys, or maybe they'd be willing to even move up a few spots for one of them, but maybe they're not as high on Odunze, for example. But regardless, I think they still would need to address their pass-catching core for Will Levis. But, I mean, Levis is not good under pressure. He wasn't at Kentucky, so getting him some offensive line help would definitely make some sense there. So I'm on the board here with the Falcons. No quarterbacks really left for them unless you think Bo Nix, Michael Penix. I like Bo Nix, but he's not the 8th best player in this draft. He's not a guy that I would spend that high of a pick on. Are we going to get psychotic? Are we going to go with Brock Bowers because he's probably the best available player? Are we going to go Rome Odunze and spend the 8th pick in the draft yet again on an offensive pass catcher? The Falcons are in a really difficult spot. One thing that I think I'm going to do, we're doing this post-combine for a reason. I think Dallas Turner's the best edge rusher in this class, and he proved it at the NFL Combine. When I was watching Brock Bowers specifically, Bowers was a good blocker against pretty much everybody that I watched. Dallas Turner took his freaking lunch money, man. And I think Dallas Turner is a freakish dude. And I think these edge rushers and these corners are going to go higher than people think because of the depth of the wide receiver class. People might chicken with it and be like, why am I going to take Brian Thomas or Adonai Mitchell or Xavier Worthy when I can get Lad McConkey or, even like Ricky Pearsall, Roman Wilson guys are getting a lot of round 2 buzz. I could see teams being like, hey, there's not a lot of edge rushers. There's a couple good high-end corners. We're going to start firing those off the board before we go to wide receiver.
Yeah, no, I definitely see that being the case here. And I mean, Dallas Turner, like you said, made himself a ton of money at the combine. Obviously, the film backed it up. I would say out of the top three edge rushers, I think it's pretty set at this point. It's going to be Turner. It's going to be Verse. It's going to be Latu. Turner, obviously, the way he tested, I can see him going as a top 10 pick. So I like that selection. I'm on the clock here with the Chicago Bears, and I feel like there's a couple directions you can go. I'm not going to lean towards defense right now because my philosophy is always if you take a quarterback early, you need to invest in his future. And there's two directions you can go to do that. You can take one of the top tackles in a tackle loaded class, or you can take one of the top three wide receivers that fall into your lap at 9. I love Rome Odunze with a fit here. Get that big physical X wide receiver. You have DJ Moore already in the offense. Cole Kmet at tight end. I would say that's a pretty damn good weapons group for Caleb Williams to walk into as a rookie.
Yeah, hell of a fit there. I mean, Ron maybe was hoping that Rome Odunze would fall to him. He'd be a great fit alongside Garrett Wilson as well. But you have offensive tackle too on the board for you, and Brock Bowers. What direction are you going?
This one is tough. If I was a GM, I think I'd go for Shanu, but I have this hunch that I really do think that Joe Douglas has Fuaga as like tackle 2 and like maybe even in the same tier as Alt. I know Daniel Jeremiah's all over him. Daniel Jeremiah and Joe Douglas are buddies. They usually have like similar player takes. So I'm going to go Fuaga here. They lock up an offensive tackle. I think that they've been eyeing him since the minute that he's been in this draft cycle. So I'll go with him. I think Bowers is interesting, but it feels like a luxury. And the Jets faithful, man, they are loud for just some kind of protection, keep the quarterback safe. So we'll go Fuaga.
Yeah, that makes sense too. I think when you look at Fuaga and Fashanu and even Latham too, because I know Kuiper put him at like 5 to the Chargers, all the way up there. Like all of those guys, you're kind of just, I think you're looking for the most pro-ready version. I'm not well-versed on these offensive tackles to who that is, but I think whoever they pick will be the most pro-ready one because they need a guy to come in and protect a 40-year-old quarterback. So definitely, I think they're going tackle pretty much no matter, unless there's like 3 off the board already and a wide receiver fell, I think they're probably going tackle.
Yeah, I'd agree.
All right, so I am on the board with the New York Giants. Again, they did trade down here, going off the board because the quarterback position obviously needed some attention by other teams here. I'm looking around for the Giants. I think they could go in a number of different directions. I don't know why these are not all selected, but they could go with a wide receiver. The question is, like, is Xavier Worthy or Brian Thomas Jr. or whatever other wide receiver you value, did they have a good enough case to be a top 3 wide receiver in this class that you're going to take wide receiver 4 off the board at 11th overall and start the run potentially? So for the Giants, I think their biggest need is wide receiver. I don't even think it's particularly close, to be honest. I think that's definitely their biggest need. I don't think they'd be opposed to trading down again here either. I think it's possible that they'd be like, I don't really love this spot, but what I'm going to do is take the best pass catcher on the board, and I'm going to take Brock Bowers to the Giants here. That's not a fit we see very often because we don't want to put Bowers that high up at 6. Darren Waller is there, sure, but Darren Waller can't stay healthy. He hasn't stayed healthy for 2 or 3 years. Brock Bowers, I think, is the best pass catcher on the board. I can't reasonably take Brian Thomas or Xavier Worthy, as much as I like those guys, over Brock Bowers. You need pass catching help, period. And Brock Bowers is actually a pretty decent fit for the offense. You can address the actual like wide out position in free agency still. Maybe you go after a Calvin Ridley or somebody like that.
Yeah, I mean, I would agree with that. I think it would come down to pass catcher, whether that's you want to take the tight end or you want to take, again, a guy like Brian Thomas, a guy like Adonai Mitchell, maybe Xavier Worthy finds his way up here. I mean, John Ross went top 10 and Xavier Worthy is a much better prospect. So I can definitely see wide receiver being in the consideration. But like you kind of mentioned with Darren Waller, if your offensive fulcrum piece, which is what Darren Waller has been for the Giants, has missed as much time as Darren Waller has, when a guy like Brock Bowers comes available to you, especially with that rookie deal, I think you can't pass it up, to be honest. So I do think getting him at 11 overall, clear top 10, possibly top 5 player in the class, I think that's enough value for them to bite the bullet. I'm on the clock here with the Denver Broncos, and it could be quarterback. It could be offensive line. It's kind of tough now. Knowing that the top 4 quarterbacks are off the board, I don't necessarily know where the evaluation in the NFL is going to come between a guy like Bo Nix, between a guy like Michael Penix, maybe, Michael Pratt / Spencer Rattler. Not really sure how the NFL is deciphering them. What I do know, though, is that the NFL is extremely high on this offensive tackle class. And if we go to the offensive tackle position, there's a ton of blue chippers still available, like Olu Fashanu, J.C. Latham, Amarius Mims, Troy Fautanu, all guys that I think should be legit top 20 overall picks. I'm going to go with the Combine Warrior. This guy weighed in like Thanos, 6'8", 340 pounds. Feels like the type of tackle that the NFL is really going to prioritize. I think Olu Fashanu would be the best of this group, but I feel like the NFL is going to value Amarius Mims as a top 12 overall pick. So I'm going to go with him.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen Georgia tackles go a little bit earlier than people thought. Nobody thought Andrew Thomas would be the first tackle off the board in 2021. Nobody really thought, I think at least, nobody really thought that Broderick Jones last year would be a top 20 pick or a top 15 pick to the Steelers last year. So I personally think that if they would go with JC Latham just because he's a pure right tackle, or at least that's his projection, and they already have Garrett Bowles there. But yeah, kind of a tough spot for the Broncos. I think if the board fell that way, they would probably try and trade down, move down a little bit for maybe, I don't know, the Jaguars or the Bengals or the Rams or some team maybe coming up for a tackle. I think would make a lot of sense, but they could go with one themselves too. So I don't think that's a bad
for
bet.
sure. Yeah, for sure. I mean, this tackle and wide receiver class is so loaded that I feel like a lot of teams are going to prioritize those two positions because you typically don't see in a draft a position of value like tackle, like wide receiver, be this freaking talented at the top and throughout the draft. So I think getting a guy like Mims, I mean, he can walk in by year 3 and be a top 5 tackle, and I don't think anybody's complaining.
Yeah, so sure. Ron, you're up here with the old Raiders.
The Raiders. Now, with the Raiders, I think like Knicks is definitely in the conversation here, but there's something about the way that the tackles fell that I kind of like the idea of going for Fashanu. Really with the idea that like Antonio Pierce is kind of old school and that, maybe he just wants to build out the trenches. There's not like a McCarthy in this area. I want to say Jermaine Illuminor is a free agent. I'm not sure about Colton Miller, but I think that they could definitely use an offensive lineman. So I'll go for Shanu there, which, by the way, Jermaine Illuminor, fun fact, we went to the same high school. So that's just something to keep in mind. Yeah.
Jersey bred.
He's from like London. He's like on all of the like European accounts. Like he's one of the biggest guys. Yeah.
Fair enough.
True. Makes some sense. I think the Raiders too, like you mentioned Pearson, old school guy. He also played in the secondary. I think cornerback 1 is possible there at the 13th pick, whether it's Terrion Arnold or Quinyon Mitchell or whatever corner they value the highest. I think the Raiders strike me as a veteran quarterback team. They don't strike me as going after a quarterback in the draft. Same goes for the Broncos too. Like if you're the Raiders or the Broncos and you're after all of these quarterback needy teams, I think for me to feel safe about like thinking I'm going to get one, I'd have to trade up before the draft the way that like the Jets did for Sam Darnold or the way that the 49ers did for Trey Lance or something. I don't think you can just sit there at like 12 or 13 with like Jacoby Brissett as your quarterback and be like, I'm just going to like wait and see how the board falls. Like, I think you probably need to get aggressive around the time of free agency. So we're going to start to see where Cousins goes, where Justin Fields goes, where all these other quarterbacks, Baker Mayfield's probably going back to the Bucs now that Evans is there. But regardless, I feel pretty good knowing that those guys, unless they get aggressive in a trade up, they're probably going after a veteran.
Yeah, I mean, just going to add to that real quick too. For the purpose of this scenario, let's say Kirk Cousins signed with the Falcons and the Raiders end up making a play with a day 2 pick at like Justin Fields, hypothetically.
Yeah, I guess you got to figure out what the Broncos are doing there too. Maybe they stole Baker Mayfield from us, but I don't know. The Saints, of course, not my favorite team in the world. So I would love to give them a bad player. I would actually hate this as a Texas Longhorns fan. I think I might have to give him Byron Murphy here, man. I think Byron Murphy is going to go a lot higher than people think. He's an interior defensive 3 tech that can rush the passer. That's a very valuable position in the NFL. They also probably have a needed offensive tackle, so JC Latham would make some sense. I have a hard time placing the New Orleans Saints pick, man, because they're kind of a weird franchise. They tend to go trenches in general, though. So I think with either one of these guys, I don't think I can really go wrong here. What I'm going to do is give him Byron Murphy, though. I think he's a great 3 tech for your defense. Your defensive line's pretty old. It's one of those positions for the Saints that they need to inject some youth into. So as much as it would hate me as a Texas fan to see Byron Murphy go to the New Orleans Saints, that's who I'm going to give him here at 14.
Yeah, no, I dig the pick. I think that's a really good fit for him as well. And I mean, we've seen the Saints throughout the years. I mean, since 2010, how many first-round picks have they used on defensive line?
And they're doing it at guards too. They're not even doing them like high-value tackles and edge rushers. They'll do it interior with Sheldon Rankins, I believe, was a first-round pick.
Marcus Davenport, Peyton Turner,
Reese, who's a guard, like Andrew Speed, who's played guard most of the time. Like they don't mind. Like it's just trenches. Like first round, they're like the Eagles. It's like give them a trench player, and you're probably on the right track.
Hey, man, I think that's a good pick, too. Plus, I mean, I think Byron Murphy and potentially Jerjon Newton are going to be the only real 2 first-round defensive linemen that go. So getting him here 14, especially the pass rushing ability that he has, like that fit. Now we're on the clock here with the Indianapolis Colts, and I think they're going to go a freak at one of these two positions. They're either going to go a freakishly athletic wide receiver, or they're going to go with the freakishly athletic corner. I mean, they got Juju Brents last year, but outside of him, I mean, Kenny Moore's a slot. Dallas Flowers is listed on the depth chart, a meter speed. Like, you don't really have anything like long term as that future set it and forget it cornerback one. I think Quinyon Mitchell, given his testing, 4.33, 20 plus reps on the bench, he seems like a Chris Ballard type of target. So I think at this point, middle of the first round, getting a cornerback with that type of athletic upside would be the Ballard special.
Quinyon Mitchell's fun, dude. I did like he's out of Toledo testing like crazy.
Oh yeah.
Seems like he's going to be cornerback one at this point. With the Seahawks, it seems like everyone's going to mock this, but I think that it is just too good of a fit to like not do it. But I'm going to go Troy Fatanu, the like tweener offensive tackle guard. He kind of reminds me of Elijah Vera Tucker when he was coming out of USC for my Jets. It seems like a scheme fit. It's tough to really know what the hell they're going to do over there with kind of like, you know, they ushered out Pete Carroll. We don't really know what the tendencies are going to be. They could go defense with the new guy from the Ravens, but I'm going to go Fatanu. Why not just sort of beef up the offensive line? You had Geno Smith dealing with injuries last year.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense too when you go with an interior guy in the mid-teens. That seems like the best time to take interior O-lineman one. And if Fatuanu is a guy that people are thinking is going to play on the interior and not at tackle, I mean, JPJ is also a very popular fit for the Seattle Seahawks as well. Just give him a Pac-12 West Coast guy, and you stayed in the state of Washington here, so that makes a lot of sense. I'm on the board here with the Jaguars. I think this is where the wide receiver run starts. Brian Thomas Jr. is my wide receiver 5. I moved him up a little bit after the combine ahead of Troy Franklin, who didn't really have the greatest combine. Xavier Worthy is my wide receiver 4, but I do believe the Jaguars would be more interested in a guy like Thomas Jr. He got a big armed athletic quarterback. Get him a guy who's a big target downfield. And I believe the NFL will prefer Thomas to Worthy. I know Worthy, is a better prospect than John Ross from like a fantasy perspective, but I actually don't think the NFL will view it that way because John Ross was 190. Xavier Worthy is 165. I don't think they're going to be a huge fan of the size profile of Worthy. So I think late first round, early second round is still where Worthy is going to go, despite breaking the 4.21 40-yard dash that he ended up doing. I don't think we're getting a John Ross situation where he gets all the way up the board, top 10, top 15 NFL draft pick. I think he's still going to relatively go where he should have been going the whole time, which is in the late first round, early second round. So, Danny, you're on the board with the Bengals here. May have just sniped you with that one, but they did franchise tag T. Higgins, so maybe they're not too interested in Brian Thomas.
Yeah, there's a couple directions I'm looking here in particular. It would be either offensive line or it would be at wide receiver. So can you show me the tackle board? Because they have Orlando Brown, Jonah Williams.
Yeah, Latham's on the board. This would be a slam dunk fit for them, I think.
Yeah, I think J.C. Latham would be the pick here, to be quite honest. And I don't really think we have to spend much time. You need offensive line. J.C. Latham is a freak prospect. You get him here at the 18th overall pick. If you're a Bengals fan, comment down below if you would have went wide receiver, offensive line here.
It's wild too, because I mean we got 5 tackles or 6 tackles off the board, 5 tackles in 18 picks, and I feel like the tackles are falling still. Like that's pretty crazy to me. I think it's possible they even go higher than where we have them.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, even as a Cowboys fan, needing a tackle, especially with the news of Tyron Smith, I'm in a comfortable spot because it's like, okay, well, the 2 positions I want most are tackle and wide receiver, and what is this draft plentiful of? Tackle and wide receiver. So first 2 rounds, hopefully that's where the Cowboys lean. I'm not spoiling the pick though.
All right, so with the Rams here, I'm gonna go. This one's a little bit weird. Like Latham, I think would have made some sense. I do lean offensive line, but it is like, man, like their defensive line. I want to say I can't remember who said it on Twitter, but it's like it's Aaron Donald and it's a bunch of nobodies. Like you literally can't name. I know that they had like Kobe Turner. They had some young guys like sort of pop up, but those are like rookies. I think that it's going to be Terrion Arnold. He seems like sort of in contention with Quinyon Mitchell for cornerback 1. They need something for the defense. So why not kind of, I guess, sort of start to scratch the surface of putting something together there.
Yeah, I'm actually a little annoyed because I think the Steelers would have loved Terrion Arnold. And The corners too. I mean, like I say, the tackles are going too low right now. I think the corners are going too low. Quinyon Mitchell, first corner off the board at pick 15 or whatever, and then Terry Arnold off the board at 19. I think it's possible that cornerback 1 goes as high as 8 to the Falcons. Like I think we could get Terry and Arnold, even potentially higher than that. Like I could see even the Giants sticking and picking a corner if they needed to, if they really valued a guy as like a top tier shutdown corner. For me, when I was watching a ton of these wide receiver prospects, Terry and Arnold, time in and time again, looks like the best corner in this class. Of course, I didn't get to see Toledo, Quinyon Mitchell against any of these top wide receivers, but Terry and Arnold held his own against Malik Neighbors. He held his own against Brian Thomas Jr. He held his own against, Lad McConkey and some of these other top wide receiver prospects. So I feel really good about his projection to the NFL.
Yeah, I'm just going to add to that as well. You mentioned you could see cornerback 1 going higher. The scenario that we had when the Giants traded down, if that team was the Chargers who traded down and ended up going at the 11th pick, I think cornerback would be high on their board, whether that's Quinyon Mitchell, whether that's Terry and Arnold. I feel comfortable at this point projecting that Arnold and Mitchell are going to be the top 2 off the board. Arnold having the best tape, Quinyon Mitchell having the best measurables. But like you said, I can see them potentially even going higher than they did in this mock.
Yeah, for sure. So I'm on the board here with the Steelers. I think there's 2 great fits here. I think Cooper DeJean would be somebody they'd be really interested in. I know PFF absolutely loves him. They have him like as the 7th best player in this draft. I think this is more his range. He's probably going to go more in the late first round area because you got to figure out where to play him. You got to, is he going to be a safety? Is he going to be a nickel corner? Is he going to be an outside corner? The edge rushers are also still on the board. I mean, they're pretty set with TJ Watt and Alex Highsmith, so I don't think they would go in that area, but they could potentially try and move down the board if, the Buccaneers, the Packers, one of these other teams maybe wanted to come up for an edge rusher. That would make some sense. I'm going to go either between Cooper DeJean or JPJ because they do need some interior help as well, but I'm going to roll here with Cooper DeJean. I think the corner secondary class is a little bit more top heavy than the offensive line class is. So I'll just roll with Cooper DeJean there for the Pittsburgh Steelers. And I mean, you drafted Joey Porter last year. He's definitely a big hit for you. Maybe this is his running mate, or maybe this is a guy that you can work in with Minka at safety or in nickel corner.
Yeah, and I think if you're the Dolphins, you probably run up to the podium and take Jackson Powers-Johnson. Connor Williams coming off that ACL injury. He was really good for them, but at this point, having leverage potentially to avoid having to pay him his 3rd contract, taking a pro-ready, possibly even day 1 Pro Bowl caliber type of center at the 21st pick. If you're Miami, especially in the win now window, you want to keep Tua upright, especially given his past concerns. You do it with arguably one of the best offensive linemen in this class with JPJ.
Yeah, it's crazy that these other 2 edges are still on the board because I think the Dolphins would absolutely be in on those 2 guys given the injuries to Jalen Phillips and Bradley Chubb as well. So Verse and Latu probably in the conversation for them as well.
For sure. Yeah, it would be between the center position or possibly one of those edge rushers as well. I agree.
Man, the Eagles spot is tough, man. Because like you guys are saying, the edge, like I think Verse and Latu like really stick out, but of course I don't think they can really go that route.
They could, man. They just throw picks at the trenches. I would probably give them.
They always take
here if I was the Eagles pick.
I agree.
Yeah,
They
always.
always
Let's go Jared Verse then, because you're right. I mean, Graham and Fletcher Cox. Like at some point they have to retire, dude. Like at some point it has to go.
Reddick is out pretty much. I mean, you drafted 2 interior guys the last 2 years with Jalen Carter and Jordan Davis, but I mean, again, whole youth movement on the defensive and offensive lines. It's totally Philadelphia Eagles type of thing to do. Again, we're doing this predictively. So again, if you disagree with any of our picks, if you're a fan of these teams and you're like, I don't think my team's going to do that, feel free to leave it down below in the comments section. I'm on the board here with the Houston Texans. They're kind of in a position. It's crazy to say this about a team that had the 2nd pick in the draft last year, but I actually think their roster is pretty well balanced. I don't look at their team and go, there's a huge need here. So I think they'd actually be kind of in a position to go best player available with whatever they want to do. I think when you got a young quarterback, I tend to just default, give them something, whether it's wide receiver help, whether it's offensive line help, whether it's, there's no running backs in this class, but if there was, running back help or whatever. For me, I'm actually going to roll with Graham Barton as a guy that you can play on multiple spots of your offensive line. Whether you play him at tackle, I think a lot of people project him interior-wise, and you could maybe use some help at that position because you couldn't really run the ball at all last year. Dameon Pierce and Devin Singletary were, Singletary specifically was okay, but you kind of need a little bit more push in the run game, and I think Barton kind of gives you that. And also, I think these tackles and guards are going to go really high. So it also kind of fits that description.
Yeah, and I know with Barton, he has worked out, I believe, at the combine or through workouts at every single spot on the offensive line, tackle, guard, center. And if you're a team like Houston, like you said, having that type of, versatility on your offensive line would be a big piece, especially trying to keep Stroud upright. So I like that pick. I think Barton would be a good fit there. I'm on the clock with the Dallas Cowboys, and there's two positions I want you to filter: offensive tackle and wide receiver. Those are the only two positions I want to look at right now. Tyler Guyton would be big consideration here, and judging from the Cowboys, it would probably be between him and Adonai Mitchell. I think the Cowboys are going to invest in the offensive line. We've had history since the 2010 season with Tyron Smith, with Zach Martin, with Travis Frederick, with Tyler Smith. Like, if they are comfortable with that offensive lineman, they will take him in the first round. And funny enough, you remember when they took Tyler Smith, it was at 24th overall. People were skeptical of the pick at the time. Ends up being an all-pro guard. At this point, I hear a lot of skepticism with Tyler Guyton. Some people really love him. Some people really hate him. I would not be shocked if the Cowboys were on the train of loving him. So tools.
Yeah, big school
tackle.
offensive linemen always go high, man. Like last year, did anybody expect? I don't even remember who his name is. The Jags took
Anton Harrison.
Anton Harrison. I didn't expect him to go in the first round, and he ended up going in round one. I think you get an Alabama tackle, a Georgia tackle, a Oklahoma tackle. Like, these guys just go high. Like, the NFL just likes big school offensive linemen, Michigan tackles. Like, that's what you get in the NFL draft. They want to draft these big hog mollies from big schools.
Amen.
Next up, the Packers. The Packers is a weird one. You never really know what they want to do. Take Luke Van Ness last year to like beef up the defensive line. I could see it being defensive line again. I could see them
sneaky. I think corner is one of their biggest needs. Sneakily, it's not listed here, but I actually don't really love their secondary. And Alexander's kind of been banged up recently. He's on a big contract. Maybe they're thinking long term with that position. Nate Wiggins obviously just ran in like the 4.2s at the combine, so he could be on the rise for some teams. I don't know. They've invested in fast corners before. I mean, they took Stokes in the first round a couple of years ago, who ran 4.3 flat or 4.29 or something like that.
And
that one would be sneaky, I think, but they could probably just go best player available here, whoever that is.
Well, I was going to ask if you guys thought, because Wiggins weighed in and everyone was like, oh shit, like he's not going first round. And then he runs 4.2. You guys think he goes first round, or where do we land on that now?
I think speed over size at corner specifically. At other positions, I think it matters more. But if you gave me one of the other things for the NFL, I think they would prefer speed to size at corner.
The only issue maybe is teams seeing what happened with Emmanuel Forbes this past year and how he was just basically
he's bigger than Forbes, though. Forbes is really small. And I actually I still think Forbes can be a good player. He just had a down rookie season.
No, I agree. It's just that's fair. I think Nate Wiggins would be in consideration, especially because you mentioned Stokes. He's been banged up throughout his tenure. At this point, I don't really know what the return on investment for him is. Are they going to bring him back? I don't necessarily know. So I think Nate Wiggins would be a good pick. So
let's do Nate Wiggins. They had the debacle with Jair Alexander with like the coin toss and
what I do,
Yeah, so I mean, they probably want to backfill that position and kind of have a little bit of a backup plan. So I'm fine with that. They're another team that feels well balanced. Like they have good offensive line play, despite not really.
They punched above their weight class last year. We don't exactly know what they need now because maybe you could have made the argument it was offensive line help or receiver help or whatever, but kind of their young guys stepped up and Jordan Love kind of rose the tides of their team. I mean, the Bucks, there's an obvious pick on the board right now. I'll probably go in that direction. I just want to outline it because I am a Bucks fan. We just re-signed Mike Evans today. I think wide receiver is still a need of ours on day 2. Probably day 3 is when they'll address that. I could see them going after, one of the hometown guys, Keon Coleman from Florida State or, Ricky Pearsall from Florida or something. I could see them doing that on day 2 in that area. I think edge rusher and offensive interior line are their 2 biggest needs, probably because you cut Shaq Barrett, JTS, Joe Tryon-Shanka, great athlete, hasn't really worked out so far. You hit a home run in the second round or the third round last year with Yaya Diaby, and you got Cansey in the first round last year. Do you want to go, you spent 2 of your top 3 round picks last year on edge rushers. You spent a pick in 2021 on an edge rusher as well. Do you want to spend this many assets at one position group? I think if Latu, Verse, or Turner were to fall to them, that'd be the only way they would do it. In this scenario, Latu fell to them. So I'm going to roll with the edge rusher. Had he been off the board, I think they might have gotten a little crazy with it and gone with like a corner or a safety, maybe a wide receiver, even potentially you grab Worthy or something, and you just suddenly have so much speed on your offense with Mike Evans and Worthy to stretch the field and Godwin working over the middle. So a lot of directions the Bucks could go in. I think offense is the side that I lean on the side of the ball because I would love a Graham Barton or a Tyler Guyton to be an interior guy, but they're off the board in this scenario.
Yeah, and Todd Bowles is pushing for defense too. He's in there. I know he already got 2 edges in the last 3 classes, but we're gonna have to get another one.
Yeah, makes some sense there. So, Danny, you're on the board here with the Cardinals pick?
Yeah, now I'm in a tricky spot because I was ready to just run up to the podium and take a guy like Laiatu Latu, but now obviously there's a lot more conversation about the pick, a lot more controversy, which makes it fun in a mock draft scenario because you're going to get sniped in the NFL. That's what happens. So we're looking at the board here. You could go with a guy like Jerzon Newton. Obviously, the influence there. Jonathan Gannon come with the Eagles, big time defensive line depth. I think that'd be a very sharp pick. The other direction I think they can go with a guy like Zach Frazier. I know he's been getting a ton of buzz at the center position. We already have JPJ off the board, Graham Barton off the board. I can see them. I believe their starter last year was Hajalte Froholt, who, if he's stopping you from taking the center, then, you got big problems. I think that in this spot, it's also tough seeing Adonai Mitchell on the board, especially with how he tested. Wow.
Somebody could trade up here. The Bills are picking next. I could see somebody wanting to come up
Chiefs?
for a wide receiver
Chiefs?
in this scenario.
Chiefs?
Is that me?
I believe so. Yeah. One of you has the Niners, one of you has the Chiefs.
Yeah. So I think I'm the one with the Chiefs pick, I believe.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know what? I like it. We're gonna do a trade with the Kansas City Chiefs here and the Arizona Cardinals because the Chiefs, I still think, have a pretty strong need at wide receiver. And the Cardinals are on the board here. They could kind of go in a number of different directions. So what's it going to cost them? 95? Is that it? Or do you think they need to give up more than that?
I don't think it'd be much more than that. Third round pick to move up.
Maybe 95 and like a fifth in 2025 or something
Sure.
like that, just to make it go through here.
Yeah.
So yeah, we're going to go. The Kansas City Chiefs are coming up to hop their AFC rival, the Buffalo Bills, and they're going to screw the Buffalo Bills yet again when they get, who are they taking?
AD Mitchell.
I guess is this me making the pick now? I guess, right?
Sure. Yeah. Your call.
Yeah, I'm making the pick now, and maybe this is not what they would do. I just want to see it fucking happen. And they're going to take the 4-2-1 speedster, Xavier Worthy, and they get that deep threat element of their offense back. Rashee Rice is a great short to intermediate target, yards after catch. Matt Harmon charted Rashee Rice on reception perception. He performed super well on in cutters and out cutters, slants and those kind of routes. That's exactly what you need from your number 2 receiver long-term, or your number 1B receiver, 1A receiver, whatever the dynamic ends up being. Worthy is the guy that you get the screen touches to, the guy that you get the deep targets to. And could you draw up a better scenario for Xavier Worthy than to go to the best deep passer, the best, overall arm in the entire league?
Yeah, I dig it.
And you cucked me. I wanted Xavier Worthy for the Bills.
Ooh.
And now here's the tough one. The Bills are in such a tough spot here because, I think the popular pick is, of course, going to be wide receiver. It feels like Diggs kind of disappeared on them at the end, but this is a team with there's a lot of needs, right? I guess they're going to get Matt Milano back here, but linebacker for them was absolutely trash. They had Tre'Davious White go down. Their corner, I think they were running. I don't even know what the corners they were running. That playoff.
They signed Rasul Douglas mid-season, didn't they?
Yeah, they
was
traded
good
for
for them.
Rasul Douglas, but I think that they were even outside of Rasul Douglas. I don't even know who they were fielding out there. I think that they were getting some run from Elam after he was kind of a bust for them. It's tough. I could see them going with the NC State linebacker. I could see it being the Illinois D lineman. I could see it being Kool-Aid McKinstry. I think I'm gonna stick with wide receiver, just as a selfish fantasy guy. But
AD,
this is a team that's getting carried by Josh Allen, dude. There's a lot of holes on this team. But yeah, I'll go AD Mitchell for the fun of it. I think Gabe Davis tweeted out his resume on Instagram or whatever. So yeah, we'll go AD Mitchell to kind of replace that.
By the way, adding to that, weren't all the metrics that Gabe Davis tweeted literally quarterback metrics anyways?
Yeah, it was yards per target,
quarterback rating when targeted, I think was one of them or something. It's you have Josh Allen. His quarterback rating is going to be high, probably.
I wonder why.
Yards per reception, minimum 80 targets, something
Jesus. That's hilarious. Yeah, I think these 2 Texas receivers, I could see the NFL playing chicken the way we have it here. It's okay, Thomas goes in the mid-teens or whatever, but there's a bit of a lull where the offensive linemen, the corners and stuff start going, because who wants to be the team that takes wide receiver 5 at the 18th pick in the draft or whatever? You know what I mean? You're going to want to wait a little bit, see how the board shakes out and see who starts to go, because I'm sure the NFL, probably all of us in the fantasy space, have a cluster of tier 2 wide receivers, have a cluster of tier 3 wide receivers. So for me, I think Worthy and Mitchell, it makes sense that they go at the back of the round 1 area there. So am I on the board here with the Lions again?
Correct, brother.
Okay, so I'm on the board with the Lions. They could go Jerzon Newton. They have really a lot of needs, I think, in the defensive line area, because Aiden Hutchinson seems to be their big, difference maker. I think I said he was their only guy last year. Lions fans didn't really like that. But the point is here, you could use more guys on your defensive line, especially with a guy like Dan Campbell. He's, old school coach. I'm sure he wants to stop the run, get after the quarterback and stuff like that. I mean, I can't really see a bigger slam dunk than going defense in general. Jerson Newton. I really like TJ Tampa. I heard Kuiper talk about him as like, please tell me what's wrong with TJ Tampa. Like, he's not getting first round buzz, but I think he will because there's not a whole lot wrong with his game. And I'm going to trust Kuiper on that. He's scouted probably 6,000 corners in his life. So I could go corner. I'm just going to go with Jerson Newton, but I do think the Lions could definitely go in the secondary as well.
Yeah, I mean, just talking about Jerson Newton, like you mentioned, Lions fans, anytime you bring up any deficiency in the roster, like they will come at your neck.
The comment that I made last mock draft, I said that the Lions could get better against the run. They were like, we're like the best team against the run in the league last year. It's like, well, Jerson Newton is a 3-tech anyway, so he's going to help you against the pass, not the
interior
run.
Pass rush matters, man. Interior pass rush matters, especially from Dan Campbell. The type of culture he wants to set on that team, having a guy that, like you said, can pair next to Aiden Hutchinson, going to be valuable, especially in the NFC playoffs. You want to fluster those quarterbacks because outside of 2 or 3, you can fluster them, man. You can fluster those guys. So I'm on the clock here, 30th overall pick, Baltimore Ravens. Obviously not the way that they wanted their season to end. Everybody pigeonholed them. Are they going to make the Super Bowl? They're going to win the Super Bowl. Obviously go down at the side of the Kansas City Chiefs yet again. But I think there's a fit that I can't pass on here with the familiarity, with the need on this roster. Get Ladd McConkey back with his boy Todd Monken.
Really? Okay. That's an interesting one because, I mean, you could make the argument that the deployment of Ladd McConkey would be similar to Zay Flowers at the next level where you want to get him on some short targets, let him work down the field a little bit. But I like it. I mean, Lamar Jackson as a quarterback, as much as he's a great quarterback and he's one of the best in the league, he still is deficient in some passing areas to the point that using Zay Flowers and Ladd McConkey as like guys that are going to be open pretty much all the time.
How are you going to game plan for that?
It makes it easy throws for Lamar Jackson, get his confidence up. When you're running the ball at the quarterback position and at the level that the Ravens will run the ball with whoever their running backs are, then you get these short completions on play action, guys that can stretch the field. Both of them have like low 4.4, 4.3 speed at that wide receiver spot. So I actually really like that fit. And like you said, there's familiarity with the play caller there.
Oh, yeah.
Now, the Niners is a tough one. I kind of this is a sicko pick that I won't do on here. I could see them going with like Roman Wilson just because they got Ronnie Bill last year out of Michigan. Maybe he kind of popped. Someone that blocks in the run game, kind of gives him some explosion. I know Ayuk, what his like brother's like tweeting after the Super Bowl, like, get my boy the ball. So I could see them doing something like that, but I think I'm just going to keep it kind of chalk here. I mean, the next best offensive lineman, Jordan Morgan, feels like kind of a guy that's, getting some buzz. I think him or like Suamatia from BYU. So I'll go Jordan Morgan. It just felt like their offensive line hasn't like been as much of an advantage as it has been these past few years. So it feels like they could just beef it up.
We're all expecting Trent to just be elite forever. He's like 36 years old. Like he's like really, really old. So as the second he's gone from this offensive line, it's no longer not as good as we thought it was. It's a bad offensive line outright.
Yeah, I mean, the Cowboys are probably going to move on from Tyron Smith, and Tyron Smith was drafted a year after Trent Williams, and he was also one of the youngest drafted offensive linemen. Like, we got to embrace the fact that, yes, Trent Williams is one of the best tackles, arguably the best tackle that I've seen probably in my lifetime. That's what I was going to say. Like Joe Thomas are top 2. But I mean, he's not Iron Man. He's not, inevitable. You know what I mean? So
yeah, he's a year-to-year basis guy probably at this point in time.
Yeah, amen.
So Danny, you're on the board again after the trade down with the Cardinals here. Again, as a fantasy, are you going to, I mean, I guess we already took a wide receiver for the Cardinals there with Marvin Harrison. Are you going to roll in the trenches? You're going to go in the second? I tend to think that a lot more of these secondary guys should be off the board, like Rakestraw, TJ Tampa, some of these dudes, maybe a safety, but I don't know where you're at.
So I mentioned that Zach Frazier was in consideration for my last pick. Obviously, Kyler Murray coming off that injury 2 years ago. You want to protect him. You already invested. I believe they got Marvin Harrison at 4, right? So investing back into your offense, especially giving Kyler that signal like, hey, like you are our guy, let's build around you, would be a great signal to send him. So you can go with a guy like Zach Frazier here. Other consideration, I mean, I'm just going to take Zach Frazier, but yeah.
Yeah, sorry, I didn't know the board would erupt on you there. I feel like, is it me or does it feel like Kyler Murray's center has been terrible for his entire career, like over snapping the ball? Maybe it's because he's 5'10" or whatever, but like it feels like every time Kyler Murray has a center, they're like terrible. It's like Mason Cole or something is who they had at the start of his career.
Go Blue.
Yeah, not great. So this is the end of the draft. Again, I will zoom out a little bit so you guys can see the entire board. Again, let us know down below what your thoughts are on the draft. Do you like where we went with your favorite team? Do you not like it? Again, try and give us some actual feedback, just not like the Steelers would never go with Cooper DeJean. And it's like, okay, well, who would they have gone with in that situation? Let us know. We're trying to learn here. We're mainly fantasy guys. I mean, we know these offensive prospects pretty well, but you know, the defensive guys and the tackles and stuff, we're still learning as you guys are. So again, if you did enjoy this, leave a like down below, subscribe. If you guys are new around here, I know mock drafts, you know, not all of you guys are fantasy players or whatever. But if you are fantasy players, make sure you're checking out both of us. Subscribe here. Head on over to Ron's channel. Check him out as well. We're doing Dynasty content. We're going to be ranking a lot of these guys very soon after the Combine and a ton of other stuff, strategy videos and all that good stuff. So if you guys are Dynasty fantasy football players, especially, make sure to check out both of us. Of course, if you are Dynasty players and you want access to our Dynasty Wall Street Journal, the first edition of our draft guide, that is available on flockfantasy.com. Use the promo code FSE for 30% off, a 7-day free trial, and a 6-month for free when you sign up annually, as well as a free Zoom consultation with one of us. You can talk about all your dynasty rosters and, you know, what trades you're looking to make and all that good stuff. So check that out. That'll be linked down below in the description. But with that being said, peace out, and we'll talk to you soon.